Well, hi, Iris. Thank you so much for coming on the show today to Permission to Become podcast.
Thank you so much for the invite. I'm super excited to be here.
I'm super excited as well. I think you're the first Gen Z guest that I have on this show, and I am just so impressed by everything that you are doing. And the initiatives you're leading. It's really learning a lot. So super excited to dive into today's conversation. And before we get into all the awesome initiatives that you're leading, I would love to just start by learning a little bit about your path. And so first, it would be great for you to share with your audience a little bit about your own Asian American upbringing and and how that has affected or shaped who you are today.
For sure, definitely. Yeah, I was born and raised in the Silicon Valley of China, which is a city called Shenzhen. It's very close to Hong Kong, and it's very much the tech city, tech capital of China. And so growing up, I've always been really much immersed into tech, and I always experienced the super fast pace of growing of the city, and I feel like I was growing with the city as well. And my family is very much a traditional Chinese family, and we share the same passion for food. So every day at dinner table, that would be when we'll be telling stories about what happened at school today, and kind of that was my memory for home. Is that is very much related to food. So and then after that, I decided. I was in high school in China until grade 11, where I decided that I wanted to come to Canada myself because one problem that I realized in Chinese education system was that everyone was looking for the same standard. Everyone have very similar value chains in terms of what's good and what's bad. Like having the highest mark is the best kid at school, and there's no other evaluation methods. And everyone is trying to be that same person. But I didn't want to be that same person. I have always been very curious as a kid. Ever since I was a kid, I love talking to strangers. Like even though my mom told me multiple times, don't talk to strangers on the street, but I'm just that kid who just loves talking to strangers because I'm just so curious about the outside world, about other people's lives. So with that mindset, I decided that I wanted to pursue a different kind of education for myself. So decided to come to Canada as an international student when I was 17 by myself. And I've been independent since then. So I think that kind of experience definitely gave me a very like more perspective in terms of different kind of education system, politics system, and I'm able to look at things more in a very objective way, I'll say, because I understand how politics works in different countries and how it is a lot of time brainwashing or campaign on either side. So
Yeah.
I think I'm able to look at things more objectively. And I really think that global perspective was able to also lead me down some of the other path that I'm able to see that other people weren't. So yeah, I'm definitely very appreciative of my upbringing, having an Asian background, but being educated in the Western kind of ideologies.
Yeah, I'm actually really curious about that. So, because I think, growing up in a system in China, where, like you said, like everybody thinks the same, everybody is molded into sort of a similar personality. I'm just really curious, like how you were able to break out of that, right? Like, how did you decide at you mentioned age 17 to decide that you wanted a different path? Did this come from your parents, or like, how did you develop that idea?
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think it came from connecting with more people and learning different perspectives. So a lot of times when you are in the same peer group, like whether in China or here, I feel like you're very much influenced by your peer. You have peer pressure, and you tend to just conform to social norm and do what other people are doing, and that
Mhm.
happens a lot, especially when you're in like for example, Silicon Valley, that's a tech bubble, or in finance bubble in Wall Street. So I think a way to break out of that is to really take yourself outside of the crowd and think more reflectively on who you are as a person, what do you enjoy, what do you not enjoy, and what are your values. So I think having those really like value grounding exercise of who you are as a person, then you can seek your why on a more clear, like a clear purpose way. So that was how I grow out of that same model, same standard way of mindset, because I believe that humans should be evaluated more than just their grades. There should be a diverse path. There should be people who are learning because they're passionate about learning. And I was just that curious kid. And I think talking to students also definitely helps, because I just have seen so many different walks of lives and so many different experiences through traveling as well. So I think I just opened up my mindset and want to explore a world that looks different.
I love that. It's like your curiosity led you to expand your mindset and sort of your own paradigms, maybe even breaking your own paradigms or challenging it perhaps, because you're not accepting what is, you're more questioning.
Yeah, for sure. I think every time someone make a statement, the best way to respond is to ask why. And but then if someone asks you, I think it's like on both sides, right? Like first it's like questioning the fact. The other side is questioning the question. Like if someone asks you, why are you doing this? You can ask, why not? So I think it's like always having a like a debative nature of just like how you think.
I'm also really curious. So you kind of mentioned how you're the non-conformist kind of growing up in China, and what were some of the things that you carried to America and to who you are today from your Chinese upbringing?
For sure. I think as someone who grew up in like a Chinese background, it's very much used to be working hard because everyone's working hard, and that kind of like work ethics carried with me today. And I think, but I feel like I'm working for a different purpose now. Like I'm not working hard because other people are working hard. I'm working hard because I'm really passionate about what I'm working towards. So I think that's something that's definitely very different from, and something that I've trained a lot within myself, the self-reflection. And I think another thing as well is the level of empathy, because in China, it's very much a relationship-driven society. So people tend to be very close with their colleagues. They go out for drinks, and they just like foster that relationship because people really need it to survive in a society. So I also brought that into kind of like my networking and into the way I build relationship and human connections with people here, because I truly do value people outside of just work, and I want to get to know them on a personal level. And I think bringing that empathy level into my work as a product manager has also really helped me to understand the user better.
I love that. And it just makes me think of the Chinese word guanxi, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
For the listeners who are listening, guanxi is essentially building relationships, and it's key to, I think, doing anything in China, like building a business or just running anything. And I did remember, like when I moved here too, it was just America was like a very different paradigm. And I think I had to like get my head wrapped around it, because in China, so much of it is like we're a web embedded and we like weaved together in a society, and everybody is interdependent on everybody. And then here is kind of, it's more of this idealistic, individualistic society where it's like you do your thing, which is also great. So it's just a very different dynamic here.
Exactly. I agree. Yeah.
So so I'm interested in, you mentioned earlier, working for a purpose now, and I absolutely love that. And I think that's something that in this podcast, I really want to dive into because on my own journey of, working and kind of exploring this path to becoming, I found that purpose is one of the most important things to making us happy, feel happy and joyful in our career. So I've been on this like whole path of learning about what is purpose, and how do people find their purpose. So I would love to now kind of learn a little bit about your path to finding your purpose and your passion, and will let you to take on some of the things that you did. So so after coming to America, you tell us a little bit about what you studied and how you chose your major, and kind of how that progressed.
For sure. Yeah. So after coming to North America, I chose to study finance in my high school. I mean, no, in my university. And then the reason initially I chose that was because I thought finance, there's a lot of transactions happening. So people will probably be talking to each other all day and then building connections and relationships.
Mm,
Until after I've done the job, I realized that's not really the case. It's a job of more about numbers than about people. So and there's also lack of innovation happening in finance, so that I decided that I wanted to transition to something that's more people-centered, also in the center of innovation. So that's when I set my eyes on product manager, because it is definitely creating new products that are having greater user experience, and while having a very huge center focus on having great relationship with your colleagues and mobilizing and motivating a team to work. So in terms of my path to transition, I would say I did a bunch of side projects, and how
mm,
I really discovered them, it was really a matter of like saying yes to opportunities that come up. And a lot of times also requires a lot of levels of like hustling, and then getting the words out there. So I
mm,
think a lot of times people would say that they're struggling with like job search, or they're struggling to find what they're really interested in. I think
mhm,
the best way to do it is really to just throw yourself out there, like take up side projects, take up
mhm,
interesting things that are happening, volunteer for nonprofit, volunteer
mhm,
for startups, like do those things that may seem like they don't have any rate of return right now, but they
mhm,
will definitely help you to discover at least what you like or what you don't like during that process when you're working on it, because it's very vague to understand what a job is like when you're just talking to someone.
mhm,
It definitely helps, like you can ask, oh, what's your day-to-day like, and then they would say a bunch of tasks, but until you really do it yourself, you won't actually understand, okay, what does it mean to create product roadmap, what does it mean to um, like have a user journey, like
mhm,
you would need to go through that experience yourself to understand, is this role for you, are these tasks, are these motivation, are these goals, do they fit the kind of things you want to do.
mhm.
So I think that's how I found my passion, just through doing a gazillion numbers of like side
Yeah.
projects and initiatives that outside of school and work.
Yeah, I would love for you to kind of dig into like, what were the different projects you took on to really explore your passion, because you were a finance major, and I think not many people choose product management and or consider nonprofit. So I'm curious for you to share with the audience here, like what were the different projects you took on and how you made those decisions to try these side projects.
For sure. So the first two projects I did were volunteering with two other startups. One is called Founders Beta, and it's an entrepreneurship society kind of thing for founders to host events together and meet other founders. And I joined that because I want to become a founder myself, and I'm happy to say that I am a founder of a project right now. And
Mhm,
for me to also network and get to learn about other founders. That was the reason I joined, and as a like a product manager. And then the second project I worked on was Kuzo Class, and it is an ag tech platform. And I was actually the first cohort beta user for their entrepreneurship class. So they teach people how to start their own company. And then after my cohort ended, I reconnected with the CEO and asking, I'm looking for product opportunities. Can I get on board and work with you? And basically on the spot, he asked me, okay, go to our website, tell us what kind of things we should improve on. So basically, I just talked on top of my mind, like 5 things that I think they can improve on based on product intuition, and then what kind of things user might be looking for. So then he hired me on the spot. So I joined that one because I think I had a really good experience during my beta cohort, and I also want to help other students to start their own company. So it usually it's like I'll look at the mission behind the project, and if it's something that appeals to me, then I would decide to join. And the third project I joined was OpenMeal. So this is the one that really happened very close and dear to my heart. So it was started during COVID, basically the worst time of COVID. So April 2020. And I remember that's when like all the stock was going down and crashing. And then it was started initially during a hackathon where we were able to win like a COVID-19 hack. And after that, we decided to like bring it out to a real life project. So the idea is that the problem we just discovered is, for one, a lot of people are losing their job with the 12% unemployment rate at historical record high. Number two, a lot of people, a lot of restaurants, especially Asian restaurants, because of Asian phobia. At the beginning of COVID, people think that going to Asian restaurants, you'll get COVID. So those restaurants, like over 50% of them closed down their operation just because of that. So we wanted to help these two really vulnerable communities during COVID. So we started OpenMeal, which is a 3-sided marketplace where we raise funds for all the restaurants, and then the restaurants are able to provide free meals for those people in financial need. And these people are basically able to order from different restaurants in a very humanizing way, instead of going to food banks, and they're able to enjoy a restaurant-made quality meal. So yeah, that was the mission that we're working towards. And the reason why I decided to work on that project was that it really touches the bottom of my heart, because I'm really passionate about food, and coming from like an Asian heritage, that's always been something related to great memories. And I also really want to help these family-owned restaurants, because every one of them, they recruit like local staff, and that is also like local employment for society. So I want to support that pillar as well. And so that's how I work on OpenMeal. And going on, so the project I'm working on right now, it's called Nutrify. And I've been brainstorming for it for around 3 months before I officially started recruiting people, which was a month ago, to work on it together with me. So Nutrify, in the very beginning, I wanted to really address the sustainability problem, because I remember watching a day in the life, a day in this planet, and then wait, sorry, no, it's Alive on This Planet. So that documentary where it talks about the damage humans have done to Earth, and what would happen if we keep at the same rate of destruction. We essentially can even see the future of our next generation, who can enjoy the same Earth as we do. So that was really devastating for me, because just the thought of like my future kids will not be able to enjoy Earth, and they might go extinct at the next few generations. So I decided to really dive deeper into the problem of sustainability and carbon impact. And I realized that food is actually the second highest carbon contributor out of all the industry, with the first one being energy, but we can't do too much about that because it's big oil company that are taking control of that. But food, it's something that we, like every consumer, have the right and have the power to decide on what you eat, what is your diet to every day, right? So
Mhm.
I I feel like that is a huge gap that we are not doing in terms of our action and the level of education that we should achieve to make average consumer understand the impact of their food purchases on the climate. So that's how Nutrify got started, because I really wanted to empower every consumer to make informed decision, knowing the carbon impact of different food and then choosing the more sustainable diets. So that's the project we're working on right now is to the first MVP would be to create a Chrome extension where people can browse through online shopping and then see the carbon impact of the different products and then choosing the one that's more sustainable. Or after they choose the ones in the shopping cart, we'll recommend them with a more sustainable product. And since last month, I mean, I've been kind of recruiting a lot of people to work on this project with me. And right now we have around 45 people on our team.
Oh, wow. That's so impressive.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I just kind of I'm hearing like this common thread across your experiences of one, you're really passionate about being a founder and you took that kind of throughout the course of your four projects. And then the other one that really stood out to me was how you turned your love of food, which is a part of your culture, and especially in Chinese culture, I think food is really brings people together. It's like I think of family
Yeah.
um, when I think about food, and then you turn that into the nonprofit Open Meals, and then you took it even one step further and really thought about how our choices about what we eat can actually impact and actually can be a huge form of power,
Yeah.
really, to save the planet and raise this climate consciousness around the world. So I'm just like kind of so impressed to see like the progression of these changes. I would really love to hear some stories that you had from Open Meal, because I think it's such an empowering project to help the Asian American community and raise awareness, and also for people who like you said, like who are in need of food. It's like giving them that human experience to have a proper meal. So what were some of the stories that you've collected about the people you help, either the restaurant or people in need through Open Meal, and how has that really touched you or shaped the path and the career that you want to devote to?
For sure. I would say working on OpenMeal definitely had a huge impact on my decision on like officially transitioning as a product manager, because I was able to see firsthand like the real impact I was able to create on people. And
Mm,
uh, I think oftentimes Asians are viewed as the model minority that we do really well in the society. Most of tech are occupied by Asians, but then uh, when you look at the real stats, Asians actually have the biggest gap of between the rich and the poor.
mm,
So there are a lot of Asians that are at the bottom of the society because they're immigrants and maybe they don't speak English very well. Maybe they're restaurants owner, they're like small business owners who can be struggling. So I think just like recognizing that was something that a lot of people are not aware, because all they see is that Asians are working at high paying jobs and they're fine. We don't need to really care about them. Um,
mm,
so a lot of stories that we've heard are like quite like at the same time heartbreaking and heartwarming.
mm,
We've had people sending newsletters to us saying that they're like mother of street kids, and every time, like every week, going to open meal restaurant is the biggest thing that the kids would look forward to. And then they would send us pictures of
mm,
how the kids are eating so happily with food, and because they're not able to enjoy that on a regular basis. So, and we've also had like we also help like essential workers who are working at the hospitals, and basically enable like people to carry like bulk buy different like many packages of food and then bring it over to your colleague, and seeing those healthcare worker eating happily in the health hospital. I think that was also a moment where I feel like just like being able to help even a little bit, just like
Yeah.
making these essential workers to have free food,
Mhm.
is also something that makes me really happy. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think there are a lot more difficult situations than you would imagine. And
Yeah.
every time so we will have like an application form where we ask people like, what is your story? And then there are just so many heartbreaking stories about how difficult their situations are. I remember seeing a story of a woman whose husband just died,
Mhm.
and she also just lost her job, and she had to pay mortgage
Mhm.
and raising her kids. And that was just such a heavy story for anyone. And I think the least we can do is to provide her family with some food and some joy and comfort.
Yeah. So were the people that we were helping deliver food to, were they predominantly Asian American, or was this like for everybody impacted financially by COVID?
Yeah, this was for everybody impacted financially by COVID. It was only in the beginning that we targeted Asian restaurants.
Mhm.
But later on, we expanded it to any like people of color owned
Mm.
restaurants.
Wow. Yeah, and I think it's also really interesting you mentioned kind of this economic gap between the rich and the poor. And for the Asian American community, people usually see the ones who are, going to Ivies, getting good jobs in tech, and forget that there is sort of another group of Asian Americans, and especially during COVID, like they're the ones getting impacted and affected by, and maybe they're the ones who are actually working really hard to try to make a living during this time.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So you guys have expanded now to 6 cities. So I'm curious, like how did this grow? Like how did it grow from where it's all started? And I think the last time we chatted also, you said everyone, this is like a team across the people you're working with. It's across different cities. So how are you guys able to work remotely and then make this ripple effect impact and grow this impact to now 6 cities?
Yeah. Actually, I think we're in 4 cities, but that's roughly the same. So I would say it requires a lot of just like back to the point for making an impact. Like everyone believe in the same mission, everyone has the same purpose. So we work together because we all want to help the people of color, minority communities, and people in financial need. So
Mm,
I think that force brought us all together because we believe in the work we're doing are impactful.
mhm,
And in terms of like logistically, so we will do like group calls, and we'll like collaborate together and keep each other updated in Slack. So, and we also try our best to like make it feel more like a family or a community, so that we will be sharing like personal stories and not just be working as well. So I think that's very key for any remote working, to like know your colleague as a person. And we do that through just like a lot of casual talks, and um, yeah, a lot of like community events as well.
mm, mm. And then also for Nutrify, so you have 45 people on your team now. Like, is this also a globally distributed or distributed team that you're working with?
Yeah, this is an even more globally distributed team. I'll say for OpenMeal, it was mostly US, Canada, and majority
Yeah.
of in US. So like we didn't have as much of a time difference. But then
Mhm,
for Nutrify, we have people from over 10 different countries. Like we have
mhm,
people from Asia, people from Europe, people from North America, and it's basically almost every continent. So um, it's a very interesting dynamic because people because of the problem is very much a global climate issue. Everyone cares about sustainability, no matter you're in China or you're in US or you're in like in France. So I think it's really that's why we all came together, because we're all passionate about the same cause.
Mm.
And I think that global force also makes it really inspiring for us to work on it together, because it makes us feel closer, even though we're like across the Pacific Ocean, and it just feels like we are on Earth together. So um,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah. I think this is, you're like, the last time we chatted, I'm like, you're the Greta Thunberg of the generation of the Asian American, generation and phase.
I really wish that.
And bringing this together. So we talked a lot about your successes, and I think it's just an incredible journey of you deciding to come to America at age 17 and then choosing finance and taking on these incredible projects, right? That eventually led to this global initiative, bringing all these people together. So I'm curious, like on your path to becoming who you are now, and taking on these projects, so what were some of the challenges um, that you had faced, either as a woman, as an Asian American, um, leading, right? Like really leading these movements? What were some of the challenges that you had to confront and overcome to get to where you are right now?
For sure. Definitely a lot of challenges. I would say, well, a big one is, I think for anyone, the challenge of believing in yourself can always be hard in the very beginning. So having imposter syndrome, because I came from a finance background, I'm not very technical. Am I able to break into product manager? And then I've had multiple people telling me that, oh, you need a CS degree to be a PM. Like, what are you doing? Well, why do you even try? Like, just it sounds very it can be very demoralizing sometimes, just thinking that, okay, well, seems like I don't have the requirement. But oftentimes companies don't really require technical background to be a PM. It's only like a myth or like a consensus from people, because most PMs are from a technical background. So they assume that if you want to be a PM, you have to come from technical background. But
Mm,
PM is such a diverse career path. People come from all different kind of backgrounds. So I
mhm,
think that first step is to believe in yourself. And I have trained my self-confidence pretty well
mm.
through a lot of, um, I was actually a big fan of drama and improv,
Oh,
where I would go
wow.
on stage and I would just perform and see whatever that comes out of it. So I think that really helps me train my self-confidence and being able to just go with the flow. And I think improv is, I would highly recommend that to people.
I actually just recently started an improv class series, and I just
Uh,
had my first class and it was so much fun.
yeah, I know improv is amazing, because in improv, a big role is yes and. Like
Yes.
you have
Yes.
to say yes in every conversation. If someone asks you, do you want to go out for movies tonight? You have to say yes, and let's do this. So like it encourages you to be open to new ideas, to be very adventurous. And so
Mhm.
that's the approach I've taken in life as well. Like I've always said yes to opportunities that comes my way, and that has opened up multiple doors for me in life. So I think back to the challenges. So that was how I was able to kind of overcome the imposter syndrome by opening myself up to different kind of challenges, and also believing in myself because of my past track record. So I
Mm,
think it's important to also like give credit to yourself based on what you have done, and then believing, just like having faith that everything will work out, and they usually do.
mm.
So I think that that's how I try to like overcome all the challenges, or the all
Yeah.
coming from other people or coming from myself.
And did you take on these all in college, in terms of building your self-confidence and taking drama and improv? When did those kind of happen for you?
Yeah, I would say it happened kind of throughout high school. So I would say any like performance related activity could help. And I was also an athlete in high school. Like um I do like a lot of like short runs where a lot of sprints and a lot of competitions. So
Mm-hmm.
I would say that also helps me to build up a stronger mental capacity to be able to take failures, to be able to face adversity, and to be able to be very competitive when you need to. So
Mm. What
I
were
think,
some of the sports that you did in high school? I'm actually curious.
yeah, I would say track and field was a big one. I
Okay.
also did volleyball, and I'm also a dancer. So I do like ballroom dancing, and I've danced competitively before as well. Um,
Tell us about that. That is actually a really interesting hobby. Like how has that folded into your who you are?
Yeah, I would say dancing for me is almost kind of like a meditation because whenever I dance, I forget about everything else. And
Hmm.
it's also, I would say it's a very graceful kind of dance, and it helps me to have a good posture when I'm used to like sitting very uptight and standing very uptight. So I think that itself, like having the good posture in my physical state, also helped me to build up confidence because
Hmm.
I that's just like the state I'm used to.
Mm, wow. Yeah, this is such a rich, like I think you even like a rich set of things you do even outside of your work, quote unquote, which it's just so enriching. So um, I think maybe like as we're rounding up to, learning about your path and hearing about all these projects, like I'm really curious, like what's your definition of purpose for you?
Yeah. So I would say the definition of purpose for me is to create something of value that are able to enable other people, like empower other people, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and have a lasting impact after I die. So I think the reason why I feel like that would be the purpose is not only because I want something I do to like live after I die or like me
Mm,
being remembered. It's also that I feel like humans, I mean, everyone has such a short life, and it's it's totally up to you how you want to spend it and how you want to define purpose. Purpose for some people is just to have a good life, have
mm,
a good family, good kids, which is totally like there's nothing wrong with it, and
mhm,
it's really great. I think for me, it's just that um, I have a fairly high bar for myself, and I want to push human towards like forward in terms of either civilization or
mhm,
technology advancement or climate change issues
mhm,
in, in an area that I'm good at with my strength and with my like naturally born gift or the gift that
mhm.
I'm able to basically use as a human. So I think
Yeah.
that's why I wanted to do that.
I'm gonna ask a follow-up question. What is your gift or your superpower, and how did you go about finding that?
Yeah, so I think I kind of talk about this in saying that I love talking to strangers. So I think curiosity is one of my gift in understanding
Mhm,
how the world work, and I think that really helps in just like asking the right question and sometimes even asking the dumb questions
mm,
because a lot of people they would care about they don't want other people to think that they're dumb, so they wouldn't ask the question that
mm,
everyone in the room might be confused about. But I would always stand out to be that person because
mhm,
you never know if maybe someone else is also confused about it. And just like having the courage to not care as much about other people's opinion about you, but instead
mhm.
just being able to be yourself and be authentic. I think it's very important.
Yeah.
And I think another gift I have is probably I would say I'm trying to get better, but I would say in terms of storytelling and uh,
Mm,
getting people mobilized or motivated on working on something. So I think
mhm,
that's a skill that I'm also trying to train myself in by leading a team of 45 people and
Mm.
understanding everyone's motivation and how to be a better leader. So
Yes. I love this topic of storytelling. And actually, as a PM myself, I think storytelling is actually one of the key ingredients to success, because you're working with so many different people and you have to um, lead by influence to rally the people around. So how are you building your storytelling skills, and what are some of the resources that you might be able to share with the listeners on if they want to get better at storytelling?
yeah, I would say really start from observing. Like, I think storytelling comes from the understanding of people. Once you understand human behaviors, human desires, then you can tell a story from a better perspective. So
Mhm,
I would almost always start from observing either like user behaviors or just like how you would do things, and
mhm,
writing down those small details you have in life and reflecting on them. Um, I would say for people who are interested in just like collecting different stories, I think you should have like a notebook of like different stories that happen in your life, because
mhm.
stories are usually how a person is remembered.
Yeah.
You don't remember the fact, you don't remember the numbers, you remember the stories, and you're able to retell the stories to other people. So
Mhm.
if you're able to build your personal brand or build yourself as in stories, then people will remember you. And I
Yeah.
think that's a good way for any like social media networking or like
Yeah.
marketing. Yeah.
I'm gonna ask another question. So we're getting to, I think, something a really interesting topic. Maybe for me personally, what makes an interesting story?
Yeah, I think an interesting story encompasses a transition of a character. So there's usually an
Hmm.
inflection point in the middle where this person transformed or something turned out to be a different result as what it begins to be. So
Hmm.
I think as long as it shows the progression of this character, or either in terms of their mindset grew, or that their perspective changed, or that
Yeah.
they were able to just like grew out of their own bias, I think that is a great story.
Do you have an example of how a story that you have captured in your own life?
Yeah, I think there are definitely a lot of stories. I can talk about this. So in the very beginning of my recruiting cycle, I have always wanted to work for a robotic company, because I think
Mhm.
having the combination of hardware and software is just the coolest thing in the world. And I was super into autonomous vehicle, and there was this company called Neural. They're doing some really cool AV innovations, and then I just dreamed of getting into Neurals. And then I tried really hard. I was able to network with the HR, get on multiple calls, and then got myself a first round interview as a product manager at
Mhm.
Neural. And I was so excited. I was preparing day in, day out, 2 months in, like spending like 2 months reading everything about Neural. And then after the interview, and the interview went really well. I thought I did. And then after the interview, I got rejected. So I asked the interviewer, why did you reject me? And then he said, oh, you didn't have any hardware experience. So
Mhm.
I was like, okay, well, I moved on. And that was the first rejection in my recruiting cycle. And then later on, I was still applying for other jobs. And then this other company came on. It's Google X, so X the Moonshot Factory. So
Mhm.
the team that they're recruiting for is called the Robot Project, the
Mhm.
Everyday Robot Project, which is also robotic, and it's a field that I'm super interested in. And I'm like, okay, this time I really want to try for it. So then I didn't really try for networking, but then I wrote a long paragraph explaining why I want to work at Google X. So
Okay.
I did my first round interview, and then was able to pass it because I did a bunch of research on the interviewer's background, and then
Mm.
got into final on site, and it also went smoothly with a bunch of my research. even though I didn't have a hard work background. So in
Yeah.
the end, I was able to land an offer, and
Mhm.
I was really surprised. And it was basically my dream company. Uh,
Uh-huh.
and I think that story tells basically the transition of how I was able to turn that rejection into redirection. Like,
Mm.
that first company wasn't able to get me because of my lack of hardware experience, but
Yeah,
now I'm able to go to a different field of company, which is also my dream company.
right.
And I think is the like having that tenacity and resilience of keep trying and
Mm.
seeking after things that you're passionate about that will get you to success.
I love that so much. And I can really see this as one of your gifts to be able to like almost take a step back, instead of being immersed. And maybe this ties back to the drama that you were talking about, right? Like taking on drama as a early hobby. Like you knew the characters you were playing, but you're also able to observe the scene that is going on. So when everything is happening, you can actually pivot, um, how you tell the story, and what the takeaway is, because people can actually either fall into this like story of, okay, I'm a failure, I'm not good enough, I'm an imposter, right? Or like, which is what happened initially, or they can turn it around as almost like the hero, or what you call it, turn rejection into redirection, which I love it. To incite a different feeling and a different takeaway.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I think it's the mindset shift. I think everything can be a mindset fact as long
Mhm.
as you put the right mindset and having a positive twist on every event, you can
Mm.
always be able to do great thing with it, even though you failed in the first place.
Yeah, and I noticed too on your LinkedIn, like your all your posts, in a way, they are storytelling, and I absolutely, they're so I don't know what was the word, like enigmatic, or like it draws me, like your post draws me to it. So I'm kind of curious, like how do you set your intention, or like how do you frame your post, or what's your intention behind your posts?
For sure. So I would say I always frame my posts in a way that is like storytelling, because I intentionally want to practice my storytelling skills. And the reason I do that is because I truly believe that storytelling is the way to go in terms of
Mhm.
either convincing someone of my beliefs. So when I post about Nutrify, I want to convince people that you should switch off of red meat because that is bad for our environment. But if I
Mhm.
just put it bluntly out there, no one's gonna listen. So I'm gonna
Yeah.
tell my personal story of how I watched the documentary of our kids not having a next generation, and then how I felt very sad
Mm.
and angry. And then I think involving emotion is very important. Just like um, emotions are something that all humans can resonate with, and that is
Yeah.
the way I bring my audience to a common ground to me, because they may not understand environmental impact or sustainability, but they understand that I'm mad.
Yeah.
And I think that's enough for people to resonate and then potentially get convinced to take actions.
I absolutely love that. I'm just actually have your post, like, pull up your post. You said, I felt sad, angry, and fearful that my future kids won't have our planet Earth to live because humans may go extinct at our current rate of global warming. Like, those are very powerful words, what you conveyed there. So yeah, how did you find that, I don't know, almost this like secret sauce of infusing emotion into your storytelling?
Yeah, I would say every story has emotions in it. You probably felt something, then you
Mm-hmm.
want to tell the story. So I think just like putting it very clearly, like what kind of emotions you're feeling, and or let the audience feel that emotion, and making sure that there's that emotional twist that you're giving them, that can draw them in, because people love stories, and people love
Mm-hmm.
twists, love surprises. So I think it's understanding how human psychology works that can help you tell a good story.
Awesome. I love how our conversation turned into this art of storytelling, which I absolutely love. So I want to be respectful of our time, and we have 8 minutes left. So I want to see if there's any questions, Avi, that you might have for Iris, or anything that, we want to just kind of like open up for a free form discussion, because it has been just like a super interesting like a path of discussion so far.
Oh, hi. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear
Okay.
you
Let
perfectly.
me sorry. I thought it would it works. Yeah. There we go. Say hi. Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, I thank you. It's nice to meet you, Joyce.
Hi.
Thank you
Thank you for
for
joining.
having me. Yeah. I'm happy to join. I met Iris last year. We had actually a coffee chat. So I got to. She was helping with one salting. And I was following them because they were helping students. I work at the university myself, but I just want to say to Iris, I like Joyce said, yes, you're the best storyteller ever, and and I can relate to so many stories and of your stories because myself, I immigrated. I grew up in Luxembourg actually. So I was the same way. I I was I think fascinated by America, and we had quite a few Americans in Luxembourg. So I didn't have any. I was just I'm gonna go talk to them. I wasn't shy, and it's like whatever it takes. And I came here, and I was like, I want to come here, and I had my dreams too. And but I always loved and um, followed your stories too. And one of them actually, so this is maybe, it's one that's, Aries knows me just a little bit, but I told everyone, I love comedy. I love stand-up comedy. And I'm a terrible person, but I love comedy with a purpose. It has a message. And, stand-up comedians who, but one of the posts that I loved that Iris posted sometime last year was the one where I think she was you were at a conference and you were sitting at a table and someone came to sit. Yeah, that story. Is it okay for me to tell that story?
Yeah, tell us about it. Storytelling time.
It was because it happens to me too. When I love, basically, I think it was a guy, and it was one of those situations where, hey, I think he said, and of course, Iris, it's your story, so I'm paraphrasing here, but it was, but basically, he told her, "Oh yeah, your English is great," and I was like, "Oh my God, how many times have I experienced this kind of, hey, I can hear that accent. Hey, what did you, your English is great, and that, so I would." Yeah, I'm very sarcastic. I would just was like, "Hey, buddy, thank you so much. Yeah, your English is great too. Where did you learn your English?" And that was the end of that conversation. But I don't know. Is that um, something you still hear from? I'm just curious, but other than to me, it's like, well, pay attention to the person. What they achieve, and it's to me sometimes they seem to cut the conversation with those comments like that's not important. yeah so but that's it's one of those kind of like you say, things you experience when you move to a country, and and my English too wasn't that great, so I was like, oh, hope people will understand me, or people I'll be able to communicate properly, and but everything was fine at the end. But it's just
That's actually a really interesting story, because I think as Asian Americans, like we've come across this question so many times, like, where are you from? Where are you really from? Oh, your English is so good, right? So I'm curious, Iris, how do you turn the story around? Because so many people can go into this like victim story, right? Like, oh, people were making fun of my English and my accent. And then they spread that story around in social media. So I am really curious, like maybe you have done this, but how would you pivot that into something that is more empowering and bringing people together and bringing more awareness?
For sure. So I think how I did it was that I mean I told a story of that person asking me where I'm from, and then I said I'm from Canada, and then he said, where are you really from? And then I said, okay, I'm from China, and then it go down that path of like, okay, your English is really good. So and then I would say I didn't really point it out in the conversation or anything. And after that, I told a story of us having more understanding of other people and their background, and not just defining people as who they're from, like where they're from, and putting people into stereotype right away because of this person looks Asian, so they must be coming from China, or they have an accent, they must be Chinese. So I think it's more of building like common understanding among humans, understanding that you don't need to put people into basket. People can be global citizens. It's not necessary for everyone to just have a nation and then have a stereotype that they live up to. So I think that was the message that I was trying to spread to help foster more of a common ground among humans.
I love that. And it's really seeing the silver lining. And again, going back to what you said earlier, which is always to have a positive spin to the story at the end, so that, like, I love the part of what you said about the empathy and seeing where people are coming, like where they're coming from, to essentially at the end of the day to build a connection.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So thank you so much. This is such a has been such a lively conversation, and I just also feel super super glad that we have decided to try this new format and have our guests here on the show. I think it was it's so great to interact with others and involve them in a conversation. And I think this is definitely something I want to continue to experiment with in my own podcast. So thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom with everyone, Iris. You're such an incredible Gen Z, and you have such a great future ahead of you. And how can people get in touch? Or what's the best way to find you?
For sure. So you can definitely follow me and connect with me on LinkedIn at Iris Guo, and you can also follow me on Instagram. And I mean, follow our company as well. Nutrify is NEUTRIFY. So we're going to post more educational facts for people to learn about the impact of food on your environment. So it will be interesting for you to learn some fun facts. And I would say if you're interested in career coaching or kind of mindset shift and having a positive mindset in your life, and also I also help a lot with people's career journey. So in terms of either from job search to resume, cover letter edit, to the strategy you can take and how to network, how to do your interview very well and then land that eventual offer, and how to negotiate offer. So yeah, if you're interested in career coaching, also feel free to reach out to me.
Okay, great. I'll add all of those in the details. So thank you again. And yeah, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much, Joyce.
All right. I will